Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sinner Saints and welcome to my channel. If you like the content, as always, leave a like, share, and subscribe. Okay, so cool. So you can't see it, but this was released on 420. Haha, nice. Uh, and I am recording this on 421, and the video probably won't be out till 422. uh, of the year 2020. But there is a developer blog that they wrote, and unlike many of the blogs and updates that they've written, this one actually has an English portion. So, what that tells me is that you guys are awesome and that they are uh, catering to both the Chinese audience and to the uh, English speaking European Western audience as well, specifically. Um, so let's go ahead, let's get into this blog. Some of you may be into this, some of you may not, but I'm going to go through here, read this, talk about each point as we go through, and we will take it step by step. So, developer blog, technical alpha number 2, or pioneer test number 2. Hello and welcome, commanders, to our developer blog. Through this blog, we hope to provide the community with an insight into the world of Total War Arena development, updating you on development activities which are not automatically exposed, as well as primary topics, their challenges, and the thought processes to which surround them. That certain outbreak that we won't mention. Uh, Creative Assembly has been closely monitoring that particular thing, updates, since the start of the year. In early March, the spread had begun to significantly affect the United Kingdom. The health and safety of all staff is our top priority, and so shortly after the initial spread of that one particular thing, Creative Assembly took to the decision to ask all staff to work from home. Technical Alpha number 2 has therefore presented a host of new challenges for our development team and the company as a whole to overcome, so please bear with us during this difficult time. In spite of these challenges, we are pleased to say the team has taken them in their stride and as a result have produced and will soon be releasing the first ever Total War Arena patch developed remotely. So that's neat. So obviously we've experienced some delays due to the particular outbreak, and this has delayed our test to the very end of April, but they are releasing it in April, so kudos on you, Creative Assembly. You didn't lie. You just pushed the envelope to the very edge. But, hey, you know, they stuck to their word. What can you say? Team Arena. The Total War Arena development team is a small but dedicated hit squad, all of which are fans of the game and excited to be an official launch in China. The majority of the team are veteran arena developers, having been on the project for a significant period, some since its inception over 7 years ago. Wow, it's hard to believe it's actually been that long. Because we love the game we're making, expect to see us participating during technical alpha number 2, and please give us a wave followed by a solid charge. Okay, so some of the developers might actually be bumped into during the creation of this game. Now, this next article section is actually really important. Game mode. For those of you who participated in Total War Arena's previous release, one of the major alterations you would have noticed instantly was our new game mode, aka Territory Mode. In early 2019, the team sat down and reviewed Total War Arena's primary issues. After many long discussions over objective data and subjective feedback from our players, we came to the conclusion that there were areas of change needed to fulfill the mission of delivering an engaging multiplayer experience for everyone. So we looked to adjusting Total War Arena without ripping the heart out of it. We need to understand the alterations we want it to make within a reasonably short period of time, and so required a process which would enable fast iteration. To achieve this, we needed two things: a flexible prototype, which would enable us to easily pivot into new directions as we progressed, and frequent internal playtests to enable us to measure how we were progressing on our goals. With these things in place, we began our investigations, discovering issues and solutions as we progressed. In summary, the core issues we focused on were: the game flow was not conducive to player learning. The goal of kill the enemy or capture the base was too long term and did not help a player understand how to approach the battle. So, in other words, having a broad goal of winning the battle was too difficult for some people to realize, and so they couldn't think without Leroy Jenkins into the enemy and dying because they couldn't think about how that would affect their team and they would be dismembered. When making a mistake, the player would often be eliminated and have to wait for their commander to become unlocked. Long learning loop. Yeah, so that was actually really annoying, was if you lost, you had to wait for your commander to be unlocked. But at the same time, it offered you the ability to try out new commanders as well. So I'm not going to say it was a complete blunder, but I do think that being able to play a commander if you got out of the game would be good. Uh, Making a mistake and being eliminated, high risk, high reward. Making life as cheap, I think, takes a huge competitive edge out of the game. Maybe that is good for the casual player, but I don't particularly enjoy that change. Maybe if there were some alterations to it, as I've mentioned before, it could be good. But just, I don't know. It makes things kind of cheap with the uh, whole instant respawning stuff. Well, not instant, but you know what I mean. The respawning. Players were not engaged with the battle all the way through. There was generally only one exciting fight before a player became disheartened and left, or won easily, rather than a series of exciting highs and lows. I disagree with this. Uh, Generally, yes, there may have only been a fight or two that you would participate in, just because of how spread out the entire match was, oftentimes. But I can think of several games where I've been engaged multiple times. I've been outnumbered and came on top. I've been holding for ages and came out on top, or held out just long enough for my team to win against insurmountable odds. Uh, I don't necessarily agree with that. Uh, Maybe there are some people that were like that, uh, but I would say most of the the core players, a lot of the more veteran players, they didn't probably feel that way. There were times that it was that way, where you would be like, well, I didn't fight anyone this entire time, or I didn't see anyone, or there was, not really much going on. Sometimes, but not often. The mode was not conducive to highly competitive play with deep and varied strategic options. I disagree. I disagree. I believe it was very competitive. I believe that what you chose with the larger tier games and with more experienced players was a lot more competitive, and they spent a lot more time trying to figure out what they want to do rather than just being like, well, I get to respawn with my elephants regardless, so I'm just going to go in here and deal as much damage and then come back in 30 seconds. With only one core objective, there was little room for adaptive play. I disagree with that. There was tons of adaptive play. If you were a barbarian and you saw that the enemy had a lot of stuff that you couldn't win on a head-on fight, you could wait for them to push past and ambush them from the rear. You could use the fact that you're faster than everything on their team to completely go around them and capture the base behind them, I think there was plenty of strategic options there. Luck could play a greater outcome in the battle, meaning consistently good play was not recognized. One small mistake or bad matchup could spell the end of the game. Luck was a huge factor in it. I'm not going to lie, but that's because they had a very crappy matchmaking. Oftentimes, it was not uncommon to see one side have elephants and pikes and artillery, and then the other side have like archers, spearmen, barbarian infantry, like stuff that couldn't counter very easily what the other side brought and had. So that came down mostly to bad matchmaking. One small mistake being the difference between victory and defeat is very realistic. That's oftentimes the way things are and were on historical battlefields. But let's continue on past this. And parallel to these issues being discovered, we were implementing solutions iterating. I don't know why I was thinking integrating, but it was missing letters. Okay, iterating in a fast but effective manner. The result of these solutions are the game mode now known as territory mode. The following is a summary of those solutions accompanied by high level reasoning. Okay. That's a little bit high and mighty in my opinion, but let's continue on. With the introduction of waypoints, the player has short and medium-term goals to center their thinking around, improving their potential to learn. When a battle starts, they know exactly where to go and have a fixed position to form their strategy around. Okay, so you're dumbing it down. You're making it easier for people to be like, well, I know I've got to go here. And then you're guiding them. You're giving them training wheels, and so I think you're making the core player base because of that less skilled. When you learn from your mistakes and you learn the map and you learn things of that nature, I feel like you're more likely to do a better job. Uh, I think it's better for casual gameplay, I will say that. But as far as making the game more competitive, absolutely not. No, not at all. It does better to help people uh, get in there and not have to worry about too much because they know at the end of the day you're coming to that point. So, no, I don't agree with that at all. With the introduction of respawning, a great number of things are improved. Well, let's look at those things. Players can make a mistake in the early game and quickly return to the fight, allowing for better, faster learning. Potentially. It also teaches them that life is cheap, and so they don't really gain anything strategically other than I can just keep throwing myself at the wall and not have to worry about whether or not I'm going to live or die. Now, there are elements to it that can be conductive, but I feel that most of the time that's not really going to be the case. But let's continue. The flow of the game has more exciting peaks and is more strategic and fair as players are able to engage multiple times against different opponents. I find that a little bit lopsided. Has more exciting peaks. Yes, because life is cheap. So people keep coming in and dying. So you keep fighting. I'm not going to say that I haven't had really awesome times because of that, but at the same time, it's really fucking annoying. So it's got its bonuses and it's got its downsides. But most things do. It is more strategic and fair. I will say yes and no. You make elephants a hell of a lot more broken. Especially if the other side doesn't have elephants. So I don't agree with that in its entirety, but it does let players keep coming back, which is nice to some extent. More strategic, I think not. I feel like it just kind of dumbs things down. because rather than thinking about the whole battlefield, you're thinking about one point. I think that makes it easier for newer players, but for veterans, I feel most of us aren't that thrilled about it, especially from what I've gathered by other discords and other veterans speaking about the game and what they've seen. I enjoyed it, but it was refreshing to play something new, but I don't think that it is more strategic. Uh, as players are able to engage multiple times against different opponents, I don't feel that they necessarily engage multiple times against different opponents. From what I've seen, a lot of times they keep spawning on that same general side and keep pushing that same general side and don't look for a better matchup. And because of that, it literally just becomes wave defense. Continuing on. With the inclusion of unit levels, tickets, waypoints, and respawn, competitiveness and strategy is enhanced. The unit levels is a neat system, and I like it. It's something new. If you stay in the fight, you do level up, and it makes your unit better. Some units, though, become super broken. I don't know what effect the unit levels have on archers, but I know the, like, 75 missile resist and 75 armor or whatever that you get from Falxman make them incredibly tanky. But on the same side, like, I don't know if it affects missiles to make their missiles damage better, because I didn't play missiles during the last test. Maybe I'll get around to it during this next one some to see how it affects them. And if you have played missiles and know how it affects them in the last test, please feel free to share it in the comments, because I would very much like to know. Continuing on, what do we got here? I lost my place. Tickets, I think that was a good introduction. Because it does let you win through other means rather than just kill or capture the enemy base. But at the same time, I find that it kind of takes away from the Total War aspect of the game. I understand that it's got its differences from other Total War games, but I do feel that the tickets kind of take it away from what would be considered your normal Total War Arena match, which I think is part of the draw that Total War Arena had during its development. Sorry, I may have to take a drink here and there just to kind of keep my throat going as we read this. Let's see here. I moved this. Waypoints and respawn. I've already talked about them. Waypoints dumb it down, and respawn make life cheap. Competitive and competitiveness and strategy is enhanced. I don't believe that. Sure, you can change up strategies as you go, and that's nice, I suppose. But long term here, I feel that it's not as competitive and it's not as strategic. Because life is ultimately cheap because of the respawn mechanic. So, that's just my opinions and thoughts on it. You're welcome to disagree. Players are afforded small mistakes at the start of the game that become increasingly punishing as time goes on. This tests players' endurance and focus. Yeah and no. The respawn timer does increase as time goes on, but that basically means you can rush out, deal some damage, die early, and then come back, kill the person that you just damaged if they're still pushing, and then they have a longer wait time to get back into the game than you did, allowing you to push further. I don't think that that's strategic. You know, say I run Roman infantry at tier 4, I see a tier 5 Arminius Falksman and I charge him and then get deleted, but still do a fair amount of damage to him, I can then come back and then kill him again, and now he has a longer wait time than I did. It's not very balanced in my opinion. Players are rewarded for consistently good play. By holding more territory and winning engagement, a team will pull ahead in points and in power. This is true. Ooh, wow, what was that noise? This is true, but it also makes the game extremely lopsided. Smart players taking smart engagements get better. Because they get better, they can get so much better than the enemy that what they do becomes almost irrelevant to the point of where they can almost entirely wipe out a side by themselves. That's not balanced. Or good game mechanic, in my opinion. It's interesting if you have good matchups, but since you can't guarantee good matchups, it's not a skill-based matchmaking system or anything like that. That's not good for balance. I'm sorry, it's just not. In an ideal world, that's fine, but we live in the real world, and I don't agree with that. The unit leveling system, it doesn't help balance the game. There are more strategic options and opportunities to adapt and react to your enemy. Waypoints allow players to center their strategy by rushing, blocking, and executing area control. A successful push from one team can be countered with the correct allocation of players and tactic by the opponent. Okay, proper scouting and knowledge of the battlefield and team communication can do that without having to have dumbed down waypoints that say, hey, go here, beat enemy. I don't feel like I can stress that enough, honestly. I understand what they're doing, and it does make for a better casual experience, but not a better competitive experience. And honestly, I love competitive gameplay when you're pitted up against a team of equal skill as you, and you're going against each other, and you can feel the tension as you play, as you're moving your troops and trying to outthink each other. You can see it on the battlefield. But unfortunately, with some of the systems they have in place, that kind of takes away from that gameplay, that competitive edge that I liked from Total War Arena. The game is still fun, don't get me wrong. I just find it incredibly more casual and much less competitive in its current game mode state. Let's continue. We recognize there has been some mixed feedback over the conceptual inclusion of respawn within a historical game. I understand that. Respawns represent replenishment and reinforcement, allowing for bigger, longer battles, and we are happy that combined with the positives that the mechanic brings, that it has so far been the right decision, though we always monitor and adjust every aspect of our game if we find suitable evidence to do so. I've provided evidence to do so, in my opinion, to make the game both more competitive and more accessible at the same time. With limited ammo and going to these respawns, quote unquote, to resupply and to replenish your troops. But if a unit completely dies off, it should be completely dead. But if you can get a portion of that unit back, then it can be resupplied. That allows for the progress of the game to have those multiple engagements while also still keeping it competitive and making life not be cheap. Hopefully, by the gods above, Creative Assembly will hear that and implement it. I don't know how difficult it would be to implement it, but I hope it happens. continuing on. At this point, you're probably asking yourself, what about the old classic game mode? Is that dead? Well, no. We'd like to bring it back in some format, perhaps to accompany the current game mode during progression, or in another format, as it does provide a high-intensity, high-risk mode for players who are searching for exactly that. Note the territory mode is currently the primary game mode for which balance is derived. In turn, if classic mode was to be reintroduced, it would contain imbalances. Yes and no. You still got the data from when this game was based on the classic game mode. So, all you have to do is re-implement those stats based on the fact that you can have it going into either game mode. So you can have your strong mode stats and your classic stats. If that makes sense, your MOBA stats and your strategy game stats. You can have both in your troops in the programming. It would be a little bit more difficult to program, obviously, but it could be done. I'm excited to see what they might do with the classic game mode. Like I said, you can combine the fact that units can die and units can replenish together in such a way that it becomes incredibly more competitive. And here's how I would suggest it. Instead of having 5 points of contention plus the bases, have 3 points with the bases. Essentially, you have the diamond formation. It's your classic MOBA style. Behind each of the outposts, we'll call them, from the main base, points A, B, and C, you have resupply points. Those resupply points resupply manpower and ammunition. Give artillery and range units limited ammunition so that they have to leave the front, go get the ammunition, and come back. Simple mechanic. If you die, if Unit 3 dies, it's gone. It can't replenish. It's done. It's out of the fight. But if it has 10 men left and it gets back, it goes all the way back up to full strength and can be reintroduced back into the fight. This also will allow cavalry to be more useful. You could use cavalry to stop range play by stopping them from going to resupply. It also gives cavalry an opportunity to where eventually range play either has to pull away from the infantry or the infantry has to pull back from the fight in order to protect the range. At the same time, cavalry could go in and disrupt the infantry lines while the range is gone. There's different plays that could be made depending on the commanders and the plays that particular commander of those units wants to do. Just my opinion. Let's continue on. Technical Alpha number 1 provided us with a good amount of objective and subjective data to analyze. Overall, it displayed a good indication that we're on the right track with the game's direction. And I agree, to an extent, they are on the right track. They need to fine-tune it and make it a little bit more competitive than what it is right now. Right now, it's very casual, and that's a turnoff for a lot of players, especially a lot of veteran Total War arena players. But I do think that they're kind of on the right track. They just need to kind of straighten up and hit that stride that they need to hit to take it the rest of the way. And I hope they hit that stride. Overall, it has displayed a good indication that we're on the right track for the game. To reaffirm the assumption that we're looking to increase the scale of our next test by increasing our player population, so expect plenty more commanders on the battlefield during technical alpha number 2. During the first test, I don't know how many people actually participated, but I will say this, I did run into the same people a few times throughout just matchmaking, so having more players, having a larger player pool would be nice. It's important we focus on small adjustments for tests like this to ensure feedback and data is comparable, so the changes we've chosen to make in some areas are small but important. That's good. It's better to make small changes than to make big changes. And by gradually increasing the test size, I feel that they can uh, more acutely tune the game to a perfect median, to where it's both casual and competitive. Uh, Obviously, I feel like there should be a more competitive mode and a more casual mode, as I've stated, but you can also hit that median to where competitive play still has a nice casual feel to it to an extent and can still have some of the same elements, so that when you go over to casual play, because you just want to fuck off for a little bit and spend some time playing games, you know, just chilling, you can go there and understand the concepts, you know, or if you're ready to move from casual gameplay into the more competitive aspect, you can still see the concepts that are there from casual gameplay and start to pick up your game to meet with the competitive gameplay. So what adjustments have we made? There are two key topics we choose to focus on: learning and battle balance. Okay, let's continue. Learning. It was clear from feedback that the majority of players would like to gain a deeper knowledge and understanding of the game. As a result, we're working on creating a set of videos which will guide newcomers, provide top tips, and more advanced guidance. I don't like that they're doing that, simply because, one, we can talk as a community to teach each other. Two, a lot of times developers give bad advice. Obviously, mechanically, they know absolutely everything, but that doesn't always translate into good experience. Uh, from my own personal standpoint, I've worked in the modding community for Total War Arena games. Or not Total War Arena games, Total War games for multiplayer. And while the mod creators are absolutely wonderful people, they employ testers for a reason. Because sometimes things just simply don't work out the way that they think they do. And it comes into the same way here. Sometimes things don't go the way they think that they will. So sure, maybe it could help newcomers gain some of the initial controls and ideas of how things work. Like, for example, respawning. When that was first discovered by me, I had no idea that was even a thing. I just discovered it by, uh, really by incident, which is not how that should be. It should be clearly stated in the beginning during the tutorial that you can respawn, but it's not. But continuing on. Sticking to the topic of learning, beginners to Arena are guided to participate in a number of PvE battles before taking on those pesky humans in PvP. Yep, you're forced to fight AI. In the old game, the AI was way too dumb, and people took that same mentality into into the PvP mode, and it was so easy to tell new players from veteran players, because new players would just get trashed because they're used to fighting AI, dumb AI. Uh, Continuing on. Feedback and data clearly displayed to us that the AI difficulty was too high for the majority of newcomers, and in a few cases, even some of our more veteran fans, so we've looked to attend to these issues in our upcoming technical alpha number 2. They're making the AI dumb. I enjoyed the AI being smart. The AI used its charges. Sometimes the AI had its issues, don't get me wrong. Sometimes the AI did some genuinely dumb things, but some of those things that it did were things that honestly I seen players doing in Classic Arena sometimes. So I think the AI sits just where it needs to be. A veteran player who knows the mechanics of the game can come in and can beat fairly easily the AI, while still the AI providing some fun gameplay versus Classic, it was just a fucking joke. While at the same time, it's difficult enough so that newer players who aren't as uh, accustomed to it are challenged, forcing them to learn how to play that unit better. Now, there's benefits and downsides to this, obviously, but the hardest and best steals are made in the hottest fires. So, you want a better Total War Arena community as far as players go, you keep that hard AI and you make them suffer through it to learn how to play and become good. So that's my take on it. Uh, Moving on, balance. We expect this. I need a drink. Hang on. Ah, balance. We expect this complex topic to be ever present as it evolves with the game and the community that play it. As a result of technical alpha number 1, a small amount of fine tuning has been made to the game to help normalize anomalies and reinforce gameplay principles. I don't know what that means exactly. They just kind of fine tune things to make things more flatline, I guess. As imbalance is corrected via multiple levers, you might find some of our alterations do not directly align to the issue you felt while playing the game, i.e., Unit X is overpowered. Okay, so what he's saying is we've changed some things, but just because Falxman seemed incredibly overpowered doesn't mean that they're not going to still feel incredibly overpowered. Got it. I'm not saying Falxman were, I'm just using that as an example. Often the best solution can be distant from the result to ensure the overreaching or overarching equilibrium is not disturbed. For more details on these changes, please visit our patch notes, and I will be reviewing those patch notes. Our intention is to provide major seasonal updates, which will come in the form of content and or features with minor regular updates in between to attend to smaller hot topics. This ensures a sustainable development environment and a suitable cadence for players to digest new features and content. Lastly, we're currently investigating the possibility of adding new content, i.e. factions. China, Persia, please, please. Stay tuned and battling for more information on that. See you on the battlefield, Commander. Okay, guys, let's actually see if we can find patch notes. Patch notes, patch notes, patch notes, patch notes. I don't actually see patch notes right now. They didn't have a link to their patch notes either. We'll check this out real quick. This is... okay. So I think this is what they're talking about. Actually, no, I don't. Maybe. But they are focusing on uh, the rules of the 10v10 stronghold, or the MOBA mode. Uh, Judgment of matching level, maybe trying to make it so there is skill-based matchmaking. AI optimization. Uh, they looked into the discussion about the new model. Improved balance. So they're trying to balance things. Richer novice guide, trying to make things better for new players so that they understand gameplay. Improvement of game quality, and details of launcher and client download optimization. I assume this is the patch notes, because this is going to take us to something we've already looked at. So, yep, that's going to be it, guys. There's not actually any patch notes for the next upcoming thing. So you can't look into their patch notes currently. Maybe they'll release them as the game comes out. But anyways, guys, I'm glad you guys sat here for however long you sat here for. Glad you came and joined in the video. I hope it was informative. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, share, and subscribe, all that stuff. And I'll catch y'all later. Peace.